Greetings, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lokita Maka. So recently I've started a YouTube channel. So the idea behind it was to share knowledge in all possible ways. And most importantly, encourage as well as help young people to align their passions with their talents. So today, it's one of the first amazing experiences for me. I'm joined by someone else. I'm joined by one of our leaders, who is just a phenomenal woman. Her name is Isasiphinkosi Mdingi. Isa holds a master's degree in public administration in education, economy, and management from the University of Science and Technology in Beijing, China. She also has a Bachelor of Law from the University of Fort Hare. But besides those degrees, she's a social activist. She advocates for access to quality education, sexual reproductive health rights, gender justice, and self-determination. She has devoted herself to fight against gender-based violence, sexual assault, and all forms of discrimination. Isa has been involved in different organizations and leadership programs which have allowed her to grow and understand social problems into a deeper level. Welcome, Isa. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for accepting the invite. I am honored, to be honest. Yes, I know you. I may know you, but a lot of people who will get to watch this video, they don't know about you. You hold degrees that are interesting, and one will ask, okay, why shift from law to public administration and in education, and also you have held different leadership positions. So I want you to take us through those leadership positions. I also want you to take us through your life and what led you to doing what you're doing now. What led you to change, or not rather to change, but to incorporate public management or public administration with law, and what drove the interest behind education, what motivates Isa, who is you basically, because I feel all these roles, all that you have been doing, that you have been fighting for, advocating for, defines who you are.
Thank you, Lakita, and thank you for having me today. I feel honored being the first guest and here to share my life. So I would say for me that I've always been an activist from a very young age. I've always been inquisitive, and that's something my father always be like, don't be inquisitive in my house. This is my house, and this is my rules. Because I always questioned even things that were done at home. Why are they done like this? And basically, my life started when it comes to activism. When I was very young in my primary high school, I think I was 12 or 13 when I started that journey. And I was elected as the president of the RCL. I later on became the chairperson of COSAS, and basically just questioning everything. And eventually my parents were like, you're going to boarding school for your high school because we cannot. Because there were always many things that were coming up that I was questioning. And at the time, it was back in 2008 when corporal punishment was a topic in South Africa. And I was on the other side to say, hey, this is not okay. Can we have a conversation around this? So I've always challenged the status quo, even when I was younger. And at the time, I didn't even understand what it was. I just was not comfortable with what was happening. And I think that's why I also live by the motto that says, we don't choose to be leaders, but circumstances choose us. And I think every time I've responded to a call to leadership, it was because there was a circumstances, there was this issue that was at hand, and I chose to respond on that. And that's basically how I've led in different organizations. And I went to high school and a boarding school. It was still the same thing. I remember at one point the principal was like, "Why are you coming here and trying to change things? Why didn't you go and study in your high school, in your community?" Because I was like challenging the status quo of what was happening. So I then later on, when I got to university, I obviously did my first year in Alice campus, and when I did my human resource management first degree. And at that point, I realized that I never wanted to do human resource management, but that's all that I qualified for. But I've always wanted to be an economist. But then when I look back, even on that, I don't necessarily think I would have been good as an economist, because in economics, I only love the part that spoke on poverty. And every disadvantaged people were finding themselves in due to the economics is about. And it shows even at that point that my heart has always been with the people. It has always been about finding ways to challenge the status quo. Why are my people in poverty? Why are things different? But I've never liked the graphs. I've never liked anything about what's happening outside of economics. All I wanted to understand was the issues of poverty, the scarcity issues, and that's what concerned me the most. So I then decided, you know what, I'm going to change my degree. And that's when I started also doing career guidance to learners in high school, just to help them choose their different careers, because I fell in a trap of not being able to choose my career because there was no guidance. All I ever wanted was to go to university, and now I was at university, but I was not doing what I wanted because I didn't understand my passion. I didn't understand what I was good at. And no one picked up that I've always been good in leadership. Maybe that's what I was supposed to have been challenged towards, and learning different leadership skills. So basically, that's what I started. That was in 2012. And in 2013, I changed my degree to law, which is again was still not what I wanted to do. But then again, that was the only thing that was available in East London campus, and I wanted to transition to that side. So I did the 4 years, which is, I'll explain how then I transitioned to education. So in that time, 2013, that's when I started being involved in different conversations and different organizations. And I started with Student for Law and Social Justice. And again, that was something that then spoke to me because it was about social justice, human rights. That's where I saw my passion growing for the fight against any other injustice in society. So from that point, I then started in 2014. I was approached by two leaders in Alice campus to start Junior Chamber International in East London campus, and also Sunrise. And now I'm doing my second year degree. So I'm doing my second year in law. And at this time, now I'm supposed to lead two organizations, start them from the ground, and make sure that they grow to be something that is sustainable over time, even when I'm not there. And I was leading as local president on Junior Chamber International and as a chairperson in Sunrise. And I'm still involved in politics. I'm still involved in many other projects within the university. And I did that in the best of my abilities. And I'm proud to say that Junior Chamber International and Sunrise are still standing organization in East London campus, growing and bringing the much impact that is needed in our society. And from there, I was in different organizations. I joined the United Nations Population Fund, which is advocating for sexual reproductive health rights. Again, that was based on my own personal experience, having been pregnant at the age of 17. I started being an advocate for access to sexual reproductive health rights, friendly youth services, because one of the problems is that if I go to a clinic in my community and try and get to have prevention pills or have an injection, within 20 minutes, I knew that my father or my mother would know. So there was no way I could go in there. So the services were not friendly to me. There was no confidentiality. And I think that's why it made me off as, especially in townships and rural communities, we never really went to have contraceptives because you're afraid that your parents will know within seconds that you were there. And you are not about to tell them that you are now sexually active. So I fell into that trap of, of being pregnant very young. And then I became an advocate for access to such information and making sure that many other young girls don't fall into the same trap I fell into, because it's very difficult to be a young mother. It's something that we're not really talking about as much as we could in society. People see me having had all these degrees, having traveled the world, and they think that it was easy. It's something that they could do also. It took a lot from me, and it's not something that I would wish anyone to go through. So that was basically one of the many things that motivated me to be who I am today. So my personal experiences have always been a push behind my activism. It was a push to me transitioning to education. So after finishing my law degree, I wanted to do my master's in international development, and I applied for that. But the more I interrogated myself, I realized that my passion lied in education. Everything that I've ever done was based in education. It was about giving information to people, be it on sexual reproductive rights, be it on careers, be it on gender issues. Mine has always been about give people information and you empower them, and they'll be able to make better decisions. So then, okay, let me go through to education. And I wanted to do curriculum development, but when I got my scholarship, I was admitted to a university where they do public administration. I was so happy to do that, and I realized that everything always aligns in your life. You want one thing, but you're not supposed to do that. There's always a route that has been done without you knowing, because I ended up in public administration, and I was there and I was frustrated. It was like, this is not what I wanted. But then now that I look back, I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted, but I never saw it. Yeah, I never saw it at the time that this is exactly what I need to be doing. So again, that was based on my own personal experience, having gone to a rural community, and there we shared textbooks. We never had the luxury of having your own textbook. Notes were written on a board. We had to walk kilometers to get to school. There was lack of water and there was lack of infrastructure. We never had games. We never had sport. It was only selected for, it was rugby, netball and soccer, and I was none of that. There was no accommodation of different types of learning. And then that's where my passion for education grew. And it's still growing even today. Everything that I do is about education. So basically, I then did my master's, and my research was comparing urban schools and rural schools and understanding what causes the differences in performance outcomes. And which is, I found a lot of disparities that are happening. There are more inequalities that are leading to this, and how unfair. So we are entering into the education system as kids in rural and township schools, and competing with people who have resources and are expected to perform in the very same way, writing the same exams and everything the same. So I've been working behind the scenes in different projects, trying to help kids learn better, and that's basically what I do most of my days. It's reading, it's understanding society, understanding what can be done to improve our education system, what can be done to make sure people don't fall into the same traps I've been falling into, being pregnant young, changing different degrees, and finally finding my niche later on. And I always say, I could have stayed, I would have been far by now. But then I realized that was not how my journey was supposed to have been. It was supposed to be exactly what it is today. So yeah, that's basically who Isa is: an activist, a lover of people, a creative, a person who loves community, the society, and trying to understand what's going on in society and bridging the gap as much as I can. For example, my last project that I'm working on is the Young Researchers Hub, which is again bridging a gap between society and science, but also helping students learn research techniques and different ways of doing research, because again, I've realized there's a lot of gap when people transition from undergrad to their honors, to their master's degree. They're always struggling. So yeah, that's basically my life. I'm always just trying to create bridges between people and whatever that is where there's no bridge. I'm just trying to build a bridge. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. You are truly an inspiration to many people, and not only to girls from rural areas who see that, okay, you know what, this is possible. We can also do it. And I personally feel that not only nationally as well, but globally, you inspire a lot of people. There is something you touched on, why you ended up fighting for sexual reproductive health rights, was firstly being a young mother, which is something that I can attest to, and something that only a few people are prepared to advocate for. And it's a discussion that we don't want to have. And when people see all the pictures of your kids, you as a young mother, looking as if like everything is well, they don't know the behind the scenes. They don't know the struggles you've went through, and not only the battles with yourself, but battles with family.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And now we need leaders like you to say, unless you have planned for this route, unless you want to have a child at 17, but if not, this is the right way. Once you find yourself being sexual active, let's make sure that the young girls are protected, young men are protected, not only from pregnancy, but from other STDs. And that everything they go through, it should be confidential, because even today in rural areas, when a young girl goes to the clinic, it's still a problem. They can't.
Yeah.
Because one,
definitely,
they'll be sworn at, they'll be told all they want is to have sex and not focus on school and all those things. But you realize if you live in an urban area or a township, it's totally different. So thank you very much for that, and I wish you all the best in the work that you are doing. So you have been traveling, okay? And you didn't get your master's in South Africa. You had to fly like hours to get to China in order to do your master's degree, and you came back with that. And congratulations on that. We are so proud of you.
Thank you.
So I want you to tell us, how was the journey? You have done so well in flying the South African flag high. I've seen your designs, the dresses you wore representing Africa there, your earrings, everything you're doing. It was showing that, look, I'm an African. And I come from South Africa, I come from Africa. Even when I'm here, I will represent. We've seen that on and so I just want you to take us through that. How was your journey? Why did you decide that, okay, I'm not going to do my master's in South Africa, and I'm not going to do my master's in Africa, but I will move and be with the Asians. So how was that? Why did you decide to do your master's in China?
Thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to touch on something that you just touched on, that everything that I've done has been to assert myself as an African, globally, wherever I am. And this is because I've came to realize that wherever I travel in the world, it's either I rubber stamp the stereotypes they have about Africans, or I refute their stereotypes and create a new stereotype, or rather create a new way of seeing Black people. So it's what is called in this movie, American Son, what is called the face of the race. So it's basically every time I've traveled, I've understand that I'm the face of the race. And whatever that I do is either putting bad people in a good way, or I'm just doing the same thing that, oh, that's so African, because we've known to being a barbaric and all the bad things that it has basically been an intentional journey of saying, you know what, not that I'm faking it or anything, but this is who we are, and people must understand, and they must know that there's more to us as Black people than whatever the world is telling them. So that is why you find me wearing the way I'm wearing all the time, because I've came to understand that there's a lot of stereotype about Black people, and it's upon me to say, hang on, you're actually wrong. This is not what we are. This is what we are. I then have a choice to tell that story. Instead of being in the corner and taking whatever they're saying, I made a conscious decision to say, I'm going to dispute every stereotype you have. But going to the journey. So what happened is 2015, there was this lady from the US Embassy under their Education Bureau that came to the University of Fort Hare in East London. She was doing a presentation, and from that point, I was like, okay, maybe studying abroad is something that is possible. Because before that, it was never something that was within my reach. It was very far-fetched. It was not funny. I never dreamed of it. And my life was always scripted of, I'm going to get good grades, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to get to be married, settle, and that's it. And none of that has happened in that manner. All my life has turned out differently than I had expected. So that's where it started. That's where the interest started of maybe I can go and study abroad. But just to retract, before that, in 2014, there was a possibility that I could travel to Germany with JCI. And that's when it hit me that I didn't have a passport. And now, passport costed 400 Rand. And obviously, when I called my parents, they're like, maybe we cannot afford that. So it meant that I was not going to go for the trip. And then I remember talking to my mentor, Mr. Sandy Sobazan, and telling him that, no, I can't take the opportunity because I don't have the money. And then he offered that, okay, I'm going to give you the money to do the passport. But even if you don't go through this trip, please make sure that at least by the time it expires, you have traveled at least once or twice and there are a few stamps. And I was like, okay, that's a challenge I can take. In all honesty, I don't know how I'm going to do that because that was 2014. That was before I knew that I want to study abroad. And I was like, traveling outside is so expensive. But I studied with my church. I was like, okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to make something out of it.
If I don't have money to make a passport, how will I afford to go abroad? I'm sure that was what was on your mind.
Yeah, of course. But I've always been a person who pushes. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. Of course, in the back of my mind, I was like, how the hell are you going to do this in traveling outside when you can't even afford the passport? It was the same thing as you say. But anyway, he got me the passport. And in 2015, I joined Activate Leadership. I met amazing people there in my training. And I think one of the people, I met someone there, I don't remember her name. And one day she shared this opportunity to travel to Russia and for a leadership training, a 2 weeks preparing Global Leaders Summit. So it was a leadership summit for young people. So she shared it. Like, okay, let me take my chance. That was my first time ever putting myself out there and taking a chance on something that was beyond the borders of South Africa. So I applied, and then I got the congratulations, we've accepted you. And I needed about 20,000 Rand plus to go. And I couldn't afford 400 Rand. I was like, okay, what do you think I'm going to get? 20,000 Rand. But then I started doing the campaign, trying to raise the money, and eventually I got the money. The University of Fort Hare decided to sponsor my trip. Oh, wow. And again, that was based on the work I've been doing, and the university just sponsored my trip. And then I had my first trip out of the country in 2015, and I was going to Russia. I stayed in Russia for 2 weeks. And I think that was the beginning of it all. But then, like I said, then fast forward, I met this lady around October, I think, September, October, when she presented about this studying abroad and everything else. After that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and study abroad. And then I approached my lecturer, Professor Osode, who has always been an amazing inspiration to me because he studied in Canada. So I was like, okay, that's the first person I can go to if I want to talk to anyone that I want to study abroad. So I went to Professor Osode, like, Professor said, I think I want to study abroad to do my master's. And I was like, yes, you can. I was like, okay, then I'm going to start my journey. And then I started researching about going to study abroad, obviously because the person was from the US Embassy. I started looking at USA, check different universities that I can go to. I think one of my choices was Arizona State University. I've always wanted to go to that university, and I think I would never rest well if I don't go, at least just to go into that campus. I don't know why I'm so attracted to it, but I've always wanted to go to Arizona State University, and that's why I want to go. From that, I started doing the research and all of that, and then in my mind, I don't know how I got that, but I was like, okay, let me look at this second country. And my second country choice was United Kingdom. So I looked for 4 universities in UK, and I started applying to all of them. And to all of them, I always sent an email like, hi, I'm Isa, I'm interested in university, and I want to apply, but I cannot afford your application fee coming from low-income countries. And some of them were like, yes, we do have that waiver. You don't have to pay the application fee, you can apply. So I applied to 4 universities, and I managed to get a full admission in 3 of the universities. So if I had the funding, it would have been my choice as to which university to choose, because I had 3 choices to choose from. And that was in 2017 now, because I had done my final year in 2016. And 2017, I got my full admission. But while going through all of that, I'm trying to find funding because I needed about 750,000 rand to do my whole degree, stay in UK, study, have money for insurance, flying to and back and all of that. And that cost me $1 million. And I was like, I'm going to find it. It's okay, I'm going to find it along the way. I was confident that I could find it along the way. But then 2017 came, I was at home, I was now to regret why did I want to find the funding that I needed. But along the way, I kept on fighting for that dream because it was a dream that I wanted to fulfill all my life. It was something that I wanted to fight for. So one day I decided I'm going to come to Joburg and I'm going to knock in every other door from Pretoria to Sandton, going to different organizations and asking them, do you have funding for me? And I remember going to Mutepi Foundation, Graham Michelle, the Department of Women, UN Women, but unfortunately all of them were saying no. So I stayed 2017, I didn't get the funding. And then I started my internship. And then in January, I think around January, Avuyile Kabadia was in China. I don't know how I got to have him on Facebook at that time because I've known him before, but we never. And then I got the news that I had received the interview. So I had to do my interview in March 2018. I went for the interview. That was the most difficult interview I've been in my life. I was sure when I was done with the interview that I didn't get a scholarship. And I think it was around the 23rd of April when I got in the email that my next step, I need to do my medical checkup. And I was like, okay, I'm almost there. And because I was talking to Avril, I was like, if you get to that point, it means you got the scholarship, you just need a confirmation. But then the challenge now was that I think I got my email around the 24th, and I needed to do the medical checkup and submit around the 30th. Now the timeline was
Hi. As I was explaining then on my journey on how I applied for my scholarship. So I got my interview, and then after my interview, I needed to do my medical checkup, which is I needed to do them within a week. I received my email, I think around the 24th of April, and I needed to submit by the 30th. Now, the challenge is public hospitals, you need at least about 2 weeks to have your medical checkup done, because they have to be taken to Pretoria. Now, I needed to go for a private hospital, and it ended up costing me around 4,000 Rand to do that. And then again, because of my involvement in community, someone offered to pay half of that, and that really allowed me to live my dream and finally studying in China. And I remember I was supposed to have received my results around the 31st of July, and when I didn't receive it that day, I couldn't take it. And 31st of July was on a Tuesday. So Tuesday first came on the Wednesday, Thursday second, on the third Friday. I was like, okay, it didn't happen. So I was with my friend Mlunga when around 12, almost close to 12, it was 23:55 in the evening on the Friday. And then I said like, oh, let me check my emails. And when I get to my emails, I'm like, I get this email, and it was like, dear Miss Mdingi, and we congratulate you that we have been selected for the scholarship. And you know how the whole email would then go. And I was so excited. I was so happy. Everything was starting to sink in now that I'm about to leave home. I'm going to leave everything that I've ever known in my life. And that was going to happen in a month, because I was going to leave on the 2nd of September. And that was the 3rd of August. So I literally had a month to prepare everything, prepare myself psychologically, mentally, and others, that for 2 years I was going to be in a different country and not be home. And that journey has been beautiful for me, because the Department of Higher Education had together with the Chinese government had catered for everything. So I was going to study, and my parents didn't have to worry about anything. All I needed to do was study. So the process of applying for international scholarships, I always advise people to apply at least 12 to 15 months before. So international scholarships, they get rolled out around October, starting in September. Different scholarships are being rolled out and until March the following year, because schools start in September in those schools that side. So basically, because I wanted to study in China, I did my application in January so that I can go and study there in September. September to June, then September to June again. So that's how their school calendar goes by. So applying 12 to 15 months before. So if you want to go in 2022, I'll advise someone to start their application process now. So how do you do the application process? You identify 2 countries. I'll advise a person to identify 2 countries that they want to study in. And then in those countries, identify 3 universities that they want to study in, that offers the program they want. And you can start then emailing those universities that, hi, my name is Isasiphinkosi Mdingi. I am from South Africa. I am interested in studying in your country, specifically in your university. And this is the master's I want to do, or this is the PhD I want to do, or this is the undergraduate that I want to do, because some countries have undergraduate. And then you start communicating with them. You ask them if they have a waiver for application for international students coming from low-income countries like South Africa, and take it from there. Keep looking for universities that can offer you that, because application fees for university abroad are quite expensive. You're looking at something like 1,000 plus per application fee. So you would want them to help you in that regard. And in that process, you then start also trying to find, you can ask them to connect you with a student that is that side, that has lived that side from abroad, from a different country, so that you can start asking them, how does it feel to be in that country? What are the things to look out for? Because when I went to China, they told us when we were leaving the embassy that all my winter clothes, I must leave with them in South Africa because they're not going to work in China. And then when I got there, in January, it goes like negative 10 degrees. So obviously all my jackets from South Africa wouldn't necessarily work out. I need to buy clothes that side for winter. So those are things you need to look for. You can start going on YouTube and looking for what it means to live in that country as a foreigner, especially as a black person, if you're a black person, because the experiences are quite different. What are the culture shocks to look for? Start learning the bits and pieces of that language, how to say hello, how to ask for directions, especially if it's not an English speaking country like Asia. And then from that point, they will either connect you with a supervisor, especially if you're doing PhD, or you'll get the supervisor when you're that side. I got my supervisor when I was already in China. And you then start looking at scholarship under DHT for that country. So, for example, if you're applying to China or Sweden, there's one for Sweden. You start communicating with the universities and then start looking for alumni who've studied there. You can ask those alumni through the Department of Higher Education International Scholarship Division. And from that point, you can start doing your application and start the process. It's quite a long process. You have to do your personal statement. The application is different from what South Africa has. You have to do your personal statement. You have to get at least 2 to 3 recommendations from your lecturers, your employer. It can be also your mentor, but someone who can give a good account on your name. And you have to start looking if you have to do medical checkups. And if you have to do that, I'll say start saving up and start approaching people that can help you. Should that time comes and you say, okay, I'll need to do a medical checkup, can you help me? Should I not be able to do it in a public hospital? So basically that's the process. And I would say if you're at university, start going for counseling and just deal with some of the things that you might not necessarily have dealt with in your childhood. The reason why I'm saying this is because when you're abroad, you have a lot of time in your hands, especially in the first 2 months, and you start thinking about many things, and that's how people get to find themselves depressed, having anxiety, the isolation and everything that you deal with. So yeah, basically that's it when you have to apply for international scholarship. And what would I say to myself? That was the other question. I would say to myself, to my younger self, believe in yourself, work on your self-esteem, and just trust in your gut. And always be mindful of the things you do. For every action, there's a consequence. Be humble. Work in community projects. They help you as a person in understanding society, and they help you when you're applying for a job. They help you when you're applying for scholarships. But above all else, I'll say be kind to yourself, love yourself, accept for yourself for who you are. That's basically just outside of the accolades we're trying to find. But when it comes to school, work, and everything, work hard, perseverance. I'll take from what Oprah says that luck is not just luck is preparation met with an opportunity to grab every opportunity. Be that person who's always applying for things, checking out things, read and never stop reading, because it helps you in building yourself. And just be involved in society. Find something that makes you tick. Find something that you're not happy about in society and devote all your life. For me, it's education. There's everything wrong with education system in this country, and for me, that's where I devoted myself. Make your voice be heard, speak up, and just basically do whatever you can to make sure that you live in a better society. So thank you very much. You've also asked me a question about the current project I'm doing called Young Researchers Hub. So Young Researchers Hub came out of my own personal experience. So when I did my master's, I think I suffered more than I should have, because I didn't necessarily understand research techniques and principles, because in my undergrad we didn't do much around research. Even when we did a research course, it didn't really give much to us. So when I did my master's, it was starting from the beginning. I needed to learn about what literature review is, how do I choose a methodology, how to do my introduction, what is an abstract, what are keywords, how do you choose keywords, and all of those things. And I had to rely on YouTube, mostly because I was learning in a country where English is also not a medium of instruction. So basically, my supervisor couldn't really be that much of help in such things, and there was also an understanding that I should know those things. So Young Researchers Hub has three aims. It is to bridge a gap between society, the public, and the science, which is the researchers, because more often than not, people do research and their research papers are collecting dust in universities, and at the same time, those who would translate their research papers into articles are only available to a few. Those people who are going to universities are able to access those papers, or people who have subscribed to the ResearchGate and all of that, which is you have to pay for. But the general public are unable to have access to those research papers, and the people that help us build these researchers never get to hear of our recommendation, never get to understand some of their problems in a different level, because we are doing the research, so we able to analyze and make connections to why things are happening the way they are. So Young Researchers Hub is for the researchers to engage with the broader society and basically bridge the gap between the two. But also at the same time, it's for people who are doing research, who have done research, those who are in a process of doing research, those who are thinking about doing research, and those who are not sure about doing research, to actually have a conversation, so that one day we can have people that are in love with research, and have young people of South Africa falling in love with research and pursuing research. So that's basically it, for young people to pursue research, but also to produce more research knowledge and have more researchers writing books, so that we can have those books being part of our curriculum. We speak of decolonization, but decolonization project would not be enough if we don't have the books that are written telling our own stories the best way we want to tell them. As long as they're being told by someone else, is still not justice. The government could wake up tomorrow and say, okay, we're giving you decolonization of the education, but do we have the people who have written these books so that we can have the kind of education we want? We're still struggling to find certain history of our country in books that can be recommended for curriculum. So that's some of the things that we really want. I really want people to have, to fall in love with the research and writing, so that they can one day be able to say, I produced my academic book and it can be used for curriculum, be it at primary education or higher education. So it's also to help students learn research techniques, especially those who are doing their final years or honors and going for their masters, because there's always a struggle in that regard with people not really understanding as to how to do those things. A lot of students are still crying on how to do literature review and what is it, how best to do it, how to choose a methodology, how to analyze, and what does triangulation mean, and which data analysis style to use. So basically just to help on those and bridge the gap and help the students just to learn about research, and like I've been saying, to fall in love with research. And yeah, that's basically what I want to say about this. When it comes to the current project I'm working on, that's on the research side. But my other project that I'm currently working on, I am collecting money to buy gumboots, and waterproof backpack, and also raincoats. This is for a project that I've identified and decided to work on for children in Lusikisiki and in Nyati community. So there's a student, about 70 of them, who go to Ntlenga primary school, and they have to cross the Ntlenga river. And crossing the Ntlenga river, they need to take off their shoes because they will either go with the river and they get damaged easily if they were to do that. So in that regard, there are a lot of health implications. These are young kids as young as 15, and they have to every day cross the river and take off their shoes, and when it's raining heavily, they have to miss their classes. So when I saw it on Cutting Edge, I was like, I cannot keep quiet, I cannot just turn a blind eye. And then I started connecting with the lady who was interviewed by the Cutting Edge, which she's studying at WUSU, just to give me a background of what is happening. And then I started then collecting asking for my friends to donate money so that I can buy the gumboots, 70 of them, and buy the raincoats and buy the waterproof backpack, so that when they just after they cross, they can put their gumboots on the backpack and have it on them. So it's basically to make it easy, also to always have the raincoat on them. Should it rain while they're in school, they can always use their raincoat. Because sometimes they get to school, it has been raining and they're wet, and they can't really study because they can't focus. So the school has to ask them to basically just not study that day and do what they call and do a fire for them to dry up. So those are the conditions they're studying in, and I've just been working hard to make sure that things are different for them. And so far I've collected 40 combos for the kids to be able to buy the gumboots, the waterproof backpack, and the raincoat. And I'm hoping that by end of July I would have collected everything and donate for them as they start their third term, and that could change their lives for the better. That could boost their immune system. They don't have to be cold anymore, and they have to be motivated. They can be motivated to go to school. They can get to school and not have to stop the class because they are wet or anything. So basically that's the other project that I'm working on, which is a short-term project, but hoping to make it a long-term project, because this is a temporary situation. Otherwise the kids need a bridge. The community needs a bridge, and there have been kids that have been drowning in that river, which is very painful for a parent to lose a child, but it's also painful for a child to lose their lives while they're trying to get an education in a country 27 years into democracy. But things are not happening, and as a young person I decided to take a stand. And that is me and my life as Isasiphinkosi Mdingi, and as an activist, as a mother, as a daughter of this country. I am constantly just trying to find solution to the ongoing projects, ongoing problems in our society. And from me, thank you very much.